Guys, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to talk about how much it cost me to feed all my reptiles. If you didn't know, I have 4 leopard geckos, a crested gecko, a chihuahua, a pink-tongued skink and a blue-tongued skink. So I'm going to break it down per species, per diet, for the last year, how much they've cost me. Now, obviously prices are going to vary wherever you live in the world, where you buy your food, what you offer your reptiles, how many reptiles you keep. If you are in the UK though, I will leave a link below to an online store that I have previously bought feeders from. Since nowadays there are quite a few decent reptile shops near me, I do try to support them and go around and buy feeders from them. Also, before we go any further, I just wanted to remind you I do have a new website, askleopardgecko.com, where I've organised all my leopard gecko content, so it's easy to find answers to your questions. So for example, if you wanted to learn more about diet, you certainly can. And I actually recently did a blog post answering someone's question regarding stunted growth that definitely relates to diet. So head over to askleopardgecko.com after this video and I'll leave the link below. So let's start off with two of the probably cheapest reptiles I have to keep, and that is my crested gecko and chihuahua. So they mainly eat a powdered diet, although I do offer them feeder insects. I'm not going to include feeder insects into that because I feel like the bulk of the insects go to my leopard geckos, but they definitely do have a range of mealworms, crickets. They'll eat waxworm moths, they love to leap for them. So definitely, if you do have a crested gecko or chihuahua, I would recommend offering them feeder insects also. But to keep things simple, we're going to look at two of the diets I have fed them over the last year, although in the last few months, I have to be honest, I have switched their diet up and they're really loving it. I'm sure I'm going to do a video on that in the future. But for now, let's look at Pangia and Sticky Foot Gold. So you may be tempted with Pangia to buy the bigger packets because it works out way cheaper for how much you get. But actually, once you've opened these packets, they need to be discarded after 6 months. And I think that might be something to do with the sugars breaking down in there, but I'm not 100% sure. Have I ever gone over 6 months? Probably. But don't think like, oh, I'll get a big bag, because that's what I did when I first got a crested gecko, and actually you end up wasting a lot of food. Now each pack of these is about £10 each, and what I tend to do is get 2 or 3 flavours just so there's a bit of variety, so I'm probably spending about 30 quid on that. Then there's also Sticky Foot Gold, which is a good one if you're using UV because it doesn't have synthetic D3 in it, and that's only about just over £5. For a packet of that will also last me a long time. It might vary in the country you're in, so definitely check that out. But really, you could say my crested gecko and chihuahua probably cost me about £35 a year on food, which in the world of reptiles isn't very much at all. Next up we have Rex, the pink-tongued skink. Now, these skinks will eat a range of foods in captivity. In the wild, they mainly eat snails and slugs. I have seen people get these to eat omnigold, eggs, cat and dog food, although I don't personally like to feed cat and dog food to my reptiles. Sometimes turkey mince they eat. Now, for me, with Rex, he will only eat live or freshly crushed or frozen thawed snails, and not human grade. No, you can't buy the human grade ones. You must raise these ones yourself and sacrifice them to him. Now, I did make a video on this a little while ago, but the first 2.5-3 months of feeding him snails, it cost me £125.60, including postage. It was crazy, okay? And the last batch of snails that I ordered actually ended up lasting me from like November to now. The last few I did have to freeze and I get out and thaw when he needs them. But in that time, I have also managed to breed my own snails who now produce food for him also. If you end up getting a pink-tongued skink and they're already eating a varied diet, fantastic. If you end up with a Rex, you're going to also have to raise snails, or you're going to go poor. Because by far, if I was going the way I was going with Rex, he would be the most expensive reptile to keep. And I think that's one of the reasons they're classed sometimes as specialist reptiles, just because their diet can sometimes be so specific. However, I got Bruce, my blue-tongued skink, and blue tongues like a variety of food. And I haven't technically had Bruce a whole year, so I've only had him since January. And obviously I offer him greens, veg, omnigold is a favourite of him, frozen thawed blueberries, eggs occasionally. Here have the odd whole food such as a fuzzy, maybe have mori worms and locusts. The last being actually possibly the most expensive for what you get. Now, when it comes to veg, greens, eggs, that kind of thing, that's kind of part of the household shop and probably doesn't come to very much at all, so I haven't included that in the price here. However, as I said, he does love Omnigold. A packet of this will last me a few months of Bruce, and it's just a little over £12. And since I've had him, I've gone through about 3 packets, so that's about £36 so far. Locust, however, I find myself buying new Locusts every week or two, and that's about £2.50 a tub. Because the size of the Locust he needs and like the amount you get in a tub literally will last 1 or 2 feedings. And frustratingly, when I've been noting down when I've bought feeder insect so I could make this video, I've literally just written down feeder insect. I didn't distinguish what I bought. But since I've got Bruce, I have purchased feeder insects about 16 times. I usually buy about 2 boxes of Locust at a time, and depending on what shop I go to, they're either like $2.20 or $2.50 per box. So let's just say $2.35 per box. So 2 boxes at a time, 16 times, that came to about £75.20 in like 7 or 8 months on just Locusts. Then we have Morio worms, which to be fair aren't too bad because he doesn't get them super often, and Morio worms tend to last quite a while. Like, they don't pupate like mealworms unless you separate them, and yeah. So probably 2 boxes in that time, £2.50 each, that's another £5. Then he's had about 2 fuzzies since I've had him, which were only 60p each. So with Bruce, we're looking at £117.40 for 7 to 8 months. Yeah. Now obviously taking care of your pets, meeting their needs is important, but what's also important is taking care of yourself, and that's where today's paid partner BetterHelp comes in. Now I've briefly spoken in the past that I was diagnosed with a panic disorder and PTSD back when I was 17. Yes, this video has taken a turn, but listen up. I still deal with that to this day, but I can't stress enough how helpful therapy has been. For me, getting that diagnosis and the help that I needed really transformed my situation, because oftentimes you can feel very alone and you can almost feel like you're going quote unquote crazy. And then actually once you speak to a therapist and you figure out exactly what you're dealing with and why this has occurred, and you're equipped with the tools you need, it can really make a difference. Now, BetterHelp connects you with a credentialed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site and you answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. I know beginning therapy can be very anxiety inducing, very annoying actually when you have anxiety already, but thankfully you can do this all from your phone or your computer via phone call, which I know brings me anxiety too, or video chat also brings me anxiety, but also you can do it just by messaging. If that makes you more comfortable, start off with messaging. That's absolutely fine. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, or from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/leopardgecko or choose Leopard Gecko during sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. But back to the reptiles, and probably the ones you are waiting for, my leopard geckos. Now keep in mind this is for 4 leopard geckos, and as I said, I didn't distinguish what feeders I was buying, but usually for my leopard geckos I have crickets, mealworms that I actually breed myself, so they're kind of free, the odd waxworm and the odd morio worm. I don't tend to give them locusts. They've had them occasionally, but they're just so expensive for what you actually get. You barely get any locusts in a tub, so they don't get them too often. Pretty much Bruce gets a locust because he will not touch crickets. But what I did was I added up the total of what I spent on feeder insects, which was roughly £138.90, and I took off what I think is Bruce's amount, and that came out to, for 4 leopard geckos for the year, £63.70, which works out at roughly £16 per gecko, which actually really isn't that bad. It surprised me. I honestly thought I would have paid more, but the only other thing that I fed them in this time, they did have a pinky each. I think some people might remember that. That was a bit controversial, but they were dead, frozen thawed pinkies, and they are only 50p each. And so that's an extra £2. That isn't something they would get often. But yeah, that was actually quite surprising. Now, if you have 1 or 2 leopard geckos, there is a chance you'll be buying crickets at the same rate as me. So for example, 2 boxes of crickets will last me about 3 or 4 weeks, because I find that after that time you end up with just dead ones. So it is important to keep them fed and hydrated so they, you know, they last longer, and obviously they're gut loaded. But it's weird, it's like once we get to that 4-week mark, they're either being fed to my geckos or they're dead. So you might find that even if you only have 1 or 2 geckos, you might be buying at the same rate. Let me know in the comments below what your most expensive reptile is and why. Make sure you check out BetterHelp, get that discount on your first month. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. But thank you for watching, and goodbye.